But wait, doesn't caffeine help your performance? I've read these studies, I've seen these videos that say caffeine really helps you. So I'm gonna show you how to get these benefits without the negative side effects. I'm not gonna take your coffee away from you. I'm gonna show you what you can do to tweak it. Caffeine and distance running. Should you be using caffeine? Well, there's a lot of research out there that you maybe have come across. Caffeine will improve your alertness, your wakefulness, and your distance running. But there's a flip side to this, and I'm gonna share with you here how caffeine can help you, but the reason why it helps you and how you can do it in a better way. And I'm gonna show you that caffeine actually is going to potentially probably hurt your performance in the long term. So this is for you if you're a serious athlete that's not just looking for taking a cup of coffee before a weekend 5K, because if that's you, you should probably just do it and not change that much. But if you're looking for a way to really level up your performance, then this video is for you. Now, let's start by talking about caffeine itself. And I want you to understand one thing before we jump into it. So here is a neuron, and this is in your brain. You've probably seen drawings of neurons before, but you basically collect information over here and then transmit a signal over here and then create a communication with something else over here. So over here, this is the communication side of the neuron. Now, we're gonna zoom in a little bit here. So take this guy right here. This is called a dendrite. And we're gonna just zoom in, boop, right here. There are receptors on your neurons, and this is how we communicate. This is how our neurons communicate with each other. Now, when you wake up in the morning, you're hopefully well rested. And then throughout the day, you're going to accumulate. So here's your bloodstream, okay? This is your bloodstream. We can call this an artery. And as you get tired throughout the day, you're gonna start to accumulate this substance called adenosine. So I'm gonna draw an adenosine. Adenosine. You've probably heard of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Okay, you're gonna build up more and more and more adenosine throughout the day, and this is what's gonna give you the sensation of being tired. Now, when the adenosine builds up, it's gonna be received on these little receptors on your neuron in your brain, and your brain's gonna get full of adenosine, and then you get tired and you go to bed. And then the magic of your body is when you fall asleep, you're actually gonna clear out this adenosine from your brain. It won't clear out during the day. It builds up, it builds up, it builds up, and then when you go to sleep, it actually leaves through your cerebrospinal fluid, down your spinal cord, and you clean it away. So this is natural. You're gonna build it up, and if you're running a lot, if you're working hard, if you didn't sleep enough, you're gonna have more adenosine. So here's where caffeine comes in. Caffeine, you can drink some caffeine, and caffeine is going to be in your blood as well. Now, caffeine can also bind to the adenosine receptor. So it's gonna go right here. So if you ingest caffeine, it's shaped similarly enough so that the caffeine can bind to the adenosine receptor. But it's not enough so that it signals to your body that you're tired. So it blocks the receptor, but you don't get the perception of being tired. So what caffeine is really doing is it's blocking the adenosine from telling your brain that you're tired. And so you feel more awake, you feel more alert, you feel less tired because there's less adenosine bonded to the adenosine receptor. And that's essentially how caffeine works. I want you to notice something really important here, that if you're tired, caffeine will help you by making you untired. But the problem is that you're tired. The problem isn't that you're under-caffeinated and that caffeine is going to be this miracle thing that makes you Superman. It's that you're tired, and so you're kind of Superman who's been injected with horse tranquilizers, and caffeine is just taking the tranquilizer out of you and kind of bringing you back to your natural state. But the problem is that you're overtired. So if you're running or racing at the end of the day, then maybe taking some caffeine makes sense because you're just tired. But if you're running during your normal waking hours, then sleeping more might be a better solution. There are still benefits to caffeine, and we'll jump into those here. There are a number of benefits to caffeine aside from making you just not sleepy, and it does improve running performance in some of the research studies, such as this one here. Runners were given caffeine, and then they were timed through a mile time trial, and their mile time trial, check it out here, improved by 6 seconds. I'd say that 6 seconds in 1 mile is actually pretty good. So we do have evidence that caffeine helps, but this goes beyond running. If you're not just a runner, but you're in the gym and you're pushing some weight that's really heavy, this study here shows that you're able to actually squat 600 more pounds before fatigue. Now, it doesn't mean you're gonna stack on 600 more pounds on your shoulders, but if you're squatting a small amount and you're doing it 4 reps, you're able to move 600 more pounds with the ingestion of caffeine. So we know that caffeine actually does help with short things, with a mile time trial and with weightlifting. Does it help in longer distances? So there actually is a benefit to using caffeine in a longer distance, and that comes from research that's shown that caffeine improves your ability to metabolize fat. So in a 1 mile or a 5K, you're using carbohydrate. You're using basically only carbohydrate for fuel. But when you get longer into, say, the marathon and certainly the ultra marathon, then you actually want to be metabolizing more fat earlier on in order to save up your glycogen. You've heard of hitting the wall before, right? Well, what's happened there is that you've essentially run very low on stored glycogen, which is stored sugar, and so your body has to switch to metabolizing fat. And when you do that, you need 4 times as much oxygen, and so you slow down. So if you can take some of that fat that you would use later after hitting the wall, and you can burn just a little bit of it earlier on in your race, then you're gonna take the wall and you're gonna push it from mile 20 to maybe mile 22 or 23, or maybe past the finish line. So caffeine can help an endurance runner burn more fat, and so there's an improvement for the marathon and the ultra marathon as well. This study here shows that coffee drinkers live longer than non-coffee drinkers. And this is starting to get really interesting here, because we're not talking about caffeine anymore. Now we're talking about coffee. You're often gonna see studies and people who are reporting on this, they're gonna equate caffeine with coffee, as if coffee is the same thing as caffeine. And this is completely not true. And in fact, if we understand the difference, you're gonna be able to improve your running. But we're gonna come to that in a second. For right now, this research here shows that coffee drinkers actually live longer. But some of the reasons for that are that there's good things in coffee. Even if we negate the caffeine and just put it on the back burner for a second, coffee is really a bean. It's actually a seed, but we can call it a bean. And so there's a lot of good things in plant foods. You get things like antioxidants, and you get things like polyphenols. You get all kinds of good stuff. Now, the average American gets most of their antioxidants from coffee, which is actually quite sad, because it means that the average American is not eating fruits or vegetables. Everything's cooked, everything's an animal product, things are processed, yikes. So in that case, drinking coffee is great. It's gonna give you some antioxidants. But if instead you eat an apple, or have a green juice, or have a salad, or have some potatoes, or have some beans, or have some lentils, or whatever it is, you're gonna get your antioxidants in a better way than roasted coffee. But one of the reasons why coffee drinkers probably live longer is because they're getting more antioxidants than people who don't drink coffee. But how much coffee do you need in order to get this health benefit? And the answer is that you get a benefit all the way up to a maximum of about 4 cups per day. Beyond that, your mortality risk goes up, and it goes up significantly. You can see the graph here that 2 cups has an improvement, 3 cups has an improvement, 4 cups has the most improvement, and beyond that, you're really just hurting yourself. So what are the bad sides to caffeine, and how do they apply to your running? Well, it's not all good here. There are a number of downsides. This study here shows that habitual coffee consumption within a 24-hour period has a negative effect on your blood pressure, especially if you're hypertensive. Well, most Americans, most people are hypertensive, and even if you're not, it has a negative effect on your blood pressure, meaning that it increases your blood pressure. One of the ways that it does this is by increasing your adrenaline. Now, this is really important because this is where it starts to hurt you. There's really 2 main ways that caffeine is going to hurt your running performance, and this is one of them. That same study concluded that habitual coffee consumption of about 3 cups of coffee per day were associated with an uncontrolled blood pressure. Meaning that perhaps if you have a small amount of coffee, it's not gonna have a negative effect, but 3 cups is honestly kind of conservative. And these are 3 small cups, 8-ounce cups. So if we go to Starbucks and we get the Venti, Grande, Mocha, whatever it is, then we're already at a serving and a half. And a lot of people who drink coffee, they drink it in the morning and then another one in a couple of hours and maybe another one in the afternoon. And we're getting beyond this critical threshold where they're definitely hurting their blood pressure. Now we're gonna talk about why the blood pressure is hurt. And this is really the biggest one for you. Look, I got goosebumps because I'm gonna tell you something really huge here and I've found a way to hack it. There is some amazing research that's been done out of Italy. What they did was they took a number of participants and they put a blood pressure cuff around their arm and they squeeze with the blood pressure cuff and they cut off the circulation to their arm. Then they let off of the blood pressure cuff and they use an ultrasound to look at the artery and they see how quickly does the blood return to the forearm. Now, they did this with people who drank coffee with caffeine compared with people who drank control. I think it was just water. The main ingredient in coffee, by the way. Those who drank the water, when they took the blood pressure cuff off, the arteries, they just dilate and the blood rushes back in, and within a very small amount of time, the arm, the hand, the fingers all get all the blood flow back. Things are good. But those who had coffee with caffeine, meaning just regular coffee, when they let the blood pressure cuff off, the artery did not dilate, it stayed the same. And so blood was very slow to get back into the arm. And they redid this study again, not just with coffee with caffeine, but they did it with oil as well. And they controlled for vegetable oil, animal oil, and no oil. And they had people have bacon and eggs for breakfast, or a plant-based meal with oil, or a plant-based meal without oil. And what they found was the same thing. The addition of oil into the diet paralyzed the artery, so it can't dilate. Now, what does this mean for your running? It's very important because when you run, you want to send blood to your working muscles, to your legs, to your heart, to your arms, for goodness sake, to your chest when you're breathing. Everywhere, all your working muscles in your running, they need blood. Otherwise, you're not gonna have energy. Without blood, we can't deliver glucose and we can't deliver oxygen, and you're just gonna die, basically. So you need to be able to deliver a lot of blood. And guess what? When you expand the blood vessel, like we normally can, because our bodies are really good at this if we're healthy, like we don't have atherosclerosis, or we didn't just have caffeine, or we didn't just have oil, then no problem. The demand for blood and oxygen and nutrients goes up and whoop, we dilate and whoosh, you get energy. But if you were to paralyze that artery, you can't deliver blood. And don't you think that that is going to hurt your running performance? But it gets even crazier because this has a long-term effect. Now, after you're done with your workout, you go back home and you recover, hopefully. You eat some nutritious food, maybe hydrate, sleep, and then do it again the next day. But during recovery, in order to recover, you want to deliver more blood to whatever area needs the recovery. And so the ability to dilate that artery again is really, really stinking important for not just your running performance, but for your recovery. So that's why I say that you're modulating your caffeine intake and modulating your diet is really important for the serious committed runner. If you're not very serious about it, if you're not really trying to get better, then why would you change your diet? Why would you change your coffee habits? Because you like them, and on race day, it's gonna have some impact, but the biggest impact is gonna come from your ability to do a workout, recover from it, and do it again, and do it again. And the runner who can do more workouts because they can recover quicker is gonna be the better runner. And your recovery is gonna come down to rest from sleep, the quality of your nutrition, and your ability to deliver blood and oxygen and nutrients, and also take away damaged cells and metabolites. Hey, not just thank you, but super thank you to Dean here and to Chris here for leaving a super thanks tip for us. It really makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside to know that you guys are enjoying our content so much. Thank you for being here and supporting us. Back to the video. So I want you to understand that not everybody is created equal. We're pretty similar with the way that we process foods that we take in, but when it comes to a drug, we do respond differently to drugs. And caffeine is not dose respondent, meaning that even though there is a slight benefit to having some caffeine in some distances, it's really very small. It comes down to about 150 milligrams in order to get a performance benefit, which is going to come out to about 1 to 1.5 cups of coffee. So when you go beyond that, you have the potential of really hurting yourself. Now, the people who are going to be hurt by it the most are the people who metabolize it slowly. If you metabolize it quickly, you can get the benefit of the caffeine cleared out of your system and you'll generally be okay up to 4 cups per day. Beyond that, you're going to be hurting yourself. But if you're a slow metabolizer, even small amounts of coffee are going to hurt you. And the way that they do is, check out this study here. The way that the coffee will hurt you is by spiking your adrenaline. Now, this is going to be detrimental to your arteries, detrimental to your kidneys, detrimental to your liver, detrimental to a lot of systems. You're going to be stressed out. You don't want to have consistently high adrenaline. So look at this graph. It's split to rapid metabolizers, those first 3 bars. And what we're seeing here is that a little bit of coffee raises adrenaline somewhat in a rapid metabolizer. But when we look at the slow metabolizers, those 3 bars on the right, we can see that adrenaline goes up a little bit with some coffee. And then by the time you get to 2 to 4 cups in a day, the adrenaline gets high and stays high and starts to hurt you. Now, this is a lot of people. It's probably me because I don't react very well to coffee. But how do you know if you're a slow metabolizer or a rapid metabolizer? I guess you could go get tested, but are you really going to do that? I say just avoid the caffeine. But there is a hack that you can use so you can still get that buzz and still improve your performance. Let's review here. There are a number of benefits to caffeine use. The main one is that you're going to improve the amount of antioxidants that you're getting in a day. But really, you could also get more antioxidants from your diet. You could just eat more fruits and vegetables and you'd have the same benefit. So it is a benefit, but it's kind of cheap. Second is you're going to get more polyphenols. Again, plant compounds that you could get just through your diet. Another benefit is that you're going to increase alertness. Now, we really do want this if you're going to run, if you're going to race, if you're going to do something fast or lift some weights, but you can also increase your alertness. How else? Through, you know what it is, sleep. For goodness sake, we could just sleep more. Elite distance runners, I have a chapter on this in my book where I report on the amount of sleep that a lot of elite runners who are current and from the past, Olympic runners, world record holders, how they sleep. And most elite runners, they sleep twice a day and they get a total of somewhere between 10 and 12 hours of sleep per day. Now, they're also doing this full time, so maybe you don't need to sleep quite that much, but more than 5 or 6, maybe you only need 8 or 8.5 or something, but it's probably more. The point is, why, if you wake up and you need that caffeine to get going for the day, and a lot of people do, they say, don't talk to me until I've had my caffeine, until I've had my Starbucks. If that's you, if you need the coffee in the morning every day and you can't skip it and you don't feel like you're alive until you've had it, then probably you're not getting enough sleep. You also might be addicted to the caffeine, but you probably got addicted to it from not sleeping enough. So there are benefits. We also talked about the benefits to your 1 mile time trial, about minus 6 seconds in the research. Also with weightlifting, and also with the marathon through fat metabolism. So there really are benefits. Should you have caffeine? I guess it's up to you. What I'm going to share with you here is how many negative things that happen, and you can decide if it's worth it or not. But then the real holy grail here, the thing that I'm really proud of, is I'm going to show you how to get these benefits without the negative side effects, and you can still have your coffee. You like that, don't you? Okay. But some of the negative effects, there are many. Well, when you drink caffeine, you're going to decrease the quality and the quantity of your sleep. Decrease the quality and the quantity of your sleep. You can still fall asleep, but it's going to be less deep sleep, even having coffee just in the morning. Caffeine has a 7-hour half-life. 7 hours, which means 7 hours after you drink a cup of coffee, you still have a half a cup of coffee worth of caffeine in your body. 14 hours later, you still have a quarter of that cup of coffee. So even at noon, if you have 1 cup of coffee, at 2 a.m., it's like you drank a quarter of a cup of coffee at 2 a.m. It's insane. So really, it's going to impact your sleep no matter what. Number 2 is that it's going to increase your blood pressure, perhaps chronically and perhaps in a pathologic way that can kill you. And we've already shown that research here. Number 3 is that it's going to increase your risk of having a heart attack. Seriously, check out this research here, which shows that coffee intake and the risk of MI is myocardial infarction. So this is a heart attack. And if you're a slow metabolizer, it goes up significantly. And any amount of coffee with caffeine is going to increase your risk of heart attack. And once you have 4 cups or more, it's through the roof. You're probably at some point in your life, if you habitually do this, going to have a heart attack, especially if you're a slow metabolizer. Caffeine is also a diuretic, so it's going to decrease your hydration levels. Now look, you're drinking coffee, so you're getting some hydration, but there's a diuretic in there, so you're peeing out more than you otherwise would. And so you're still gonna have a plus benefit, but if you drank the equivalent amount of water or something without caffeine, you're gonna be more hydrated. And that's of course going to help your health, and it's going to help your performance. And perhaps the most important one is the research that we shared with you in this video here on artery paralysis. Artery paralysis, which means that if your arteries can't expand, you're in for trouble, my friends. You're not going to be able to perform athletically. You're not going to be able to recover. You could have things like erectile dysfunction, everybody's favorite topic. Now, there are drugs that you can take that improve things like erectile dysfunction, and how do they work? I'm going to share with you how you can eliminate these, maximize these, and still have your coffee. Are you ready? All right, this is what you've been waiting for. I'm going to tell you how you can improve your running with the use of caffeine without getting the detrimental effects. Now, here's the key. Who says that caffeine has to come from coffee? And who says that coffee needs to be caffeinated? And if we blend those two things together, you, my friend, have a very good plan. Now, in that research here that I shared with you on that Italian study that was done with the blood pressure cuff, they also compared drinking green tea. Now, green tea has caffeine in it, and subjects who had the green tea with caffeine, they did not have any ill effect to their ability to dilate their blood vessels. So caffeine in tea is okay. So I'm gonna put a check mark, boom. Now you can also have decaf coffee. If you like to drink your coffee in the morning, you could have decaf. Then you get to have the flavor of the coffee and the morning ritual, and you can brew it. And here's a hack for you that I don't think anybody's ever done, but you can have tea with caffeine and you can have decaf coffee. What if you made some tea that has caffeine in it and then used that to brew decaf coffee? You now have coffee with caffeine, just like you wanted, but you don't have the ill effects. Remember, the research showed that there is no effect from the caffeine in tea, just in coffee, and you can still have your coffee. Now look at that. I'm pretty proud of that. But there's a way that you can make this even better, and that is with nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is really going to be the key for you here, because the way that your arteries get paralyzed through either the oil or the caffeine is that those compounds inhibit your artery from being able to make and use nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is what dilates your blood vessels. Now remember, we talked about Viagra and erectile dysfunction a minute ago. The way that something like Viagra works is that it improves your body's ability to make more nitric oxide. And actually only half of the people who take Viagra are responders to it, which is really sad, because if you take it and you don't respond to it, it means that your body is so messed up with its ability to make nitric oxide that you just can't make it, and your arteries, they're basically screwed. But hopefully that's not you. That would be for someone who has advanced atherosclerosis, They're probably maybe diabetic. They're not in good shape here. So we really do want to be able to have a lot of nitric oxide. It's super crazy important. And in the show notes underneath in the description here, I'm going to share a couple of other presentations that you can watch on nitric oxide because it's that important to your health. But I'm not going to go into it here. I want you to watch those because it's just going to change your life, okay? But how can you improve your nitric oxide even? Now, I'm going to tell you this. Even if you want to take everything that I've said and throw it in the garbage and say, well, I still want to have my bacon and eggs and I still want to have my caffeine coffee. Okay, go ahead. But here's something that you can do to still help protect yourself. And that is focus on nitric oxide. Now, how are you going to make more nitric oxide? You're going to do it through one of two ways. Either, let's use a green marker here because we're going to talk about greens. I want you to get in the habit of eating as many greens, dark leafy green vegetables, as many as you can. And in fact, the research on this shows that you actually want to have greens 6 times per day. And the reason is because it's going to give you lots of exposures to make nitric oxide, and it's going to basically make you heart attack proof. But eating greens is going to improve nitric oxide. Other things that you can do are you can eat beets. There's actually really great research on beets improving race time performance in runners and in bikers. I'm going to link to our video, the Run Elite video that we have that describes the research done on this. But in short, by eating beets, you are going to run better. Now, there's also a bunch of awesome research on eating greens, especially watercress. Now, I don't think there's anything special about watercress. It's just a green, a leafy green. But this will improve your time to exhaustion on the bike and in running as well. The research is very clear and definitive on this. We're going to link both below for you. But just for now, take my word for it that eating beets and eating greens are going to improve your nitric oxide, which are going to improve your performance. And you're not going to get the detrimental effects from the caffeinated coffee. Pretty cool, huh? All right, here is your final prescription for how to do this. The way that you really want to maximize this, if you're very serious about improving your performance, is number one, I want you to get off of the habit, the addiction of having caffeine coffee in the morning if you have that. And the reason is because you become habituated to it and you need more caffeine and more over time. And then if you get off of that caffeine, you're gonna have withdrawal symptoms. You're gonna feel like bollocks, basically. We don't want that. And then if you do have caffeine on race day, you can have a small amount, the smallest amount in order to get a benefit. Because remember, it's not dose respondent, meaning that the more you take, the better you do. No. You want to just hit that threshold of 100 to 200 milligrams, and that's it. Do not push it beyond that because you're going to get ill effects to your blood pressure, ill effects to your hydration and your diuretic needs. You're going to sleep less well. You're going to recover less well. And then the final hack for you is if you want to take this to the next level, go ahead and brew decaf coffee with caffeinated tea, and you're going to be able to have your normal coffee with caffeine. You don't really have to change anything, and eat greens as many times in a day as you can. I recommend 6. I understand that that's a lot, but hey, if you're 0, move it to 1 or 2 and just have a fistful of raw, dark leafy greens. You can also use beets, or you can do what I do. Instead of coffee, I use this stuff here. It's called tea chino. It's carob, barley, chicory, dates, almonds, and figs. I like it. You treat it just like coffee. I use a French press. I also use dandelion blend, which is basically the same thing, except this is instant. It just dissolves. And then, you're gonna think I'm crazy for this, but I put a scoop of beetroot powder inside of it. So I'm getting lots of nitric oxide and I'm not getting the ill effects of the caffeine with coffee. And then I put my milk in it, but I use oat milk without oil. So you can get a lot of plant milks that have oil in them. This one here, it has just water, oats, sea salt. That's it. So I have a delicious, earthy morning beverage every morning. It's my coffee. It improves my nitric oxide and it doesn't hurt me with the caffeine and it doesn't hurt me with the oil. That's what I do. You might think I'm crazy for doing that, but I'll tell you one thing. My arteries are probably in good shape. I feel good. I'm not addicted to caffeine and I have good faith in this. If you made it this far into the video, I just want to congratulate you. You just took some time to really learn about caffeine. I really hope that you found this very useful. Thank you for being here. I'll see you on the next video. Well, hello there. If you're liking the Run Elite videos, then you're going to love this book. Boom. Run Elite, train and think like the greatest runners of all time. Now, in this book, we're gonna break down for you 3 things that if you apply them into your training, you're gonna have a breakthrough in your performance. And the first part of the book is on mindset. How did the greatest runners, the greatest distance runners, marathoners, Eliud Kipchoge, even down to Usain Bolt, the greatest runners, how do they think? How do they train their mind? We break it down for you into step-by-step applicable things that you can do. Number 2 is we walk you through how to set up your actual training from step 1 to your PR. And no matter how much time you have, we show you how to calculate how much time you need, different phases of training, what kind of workouts to do when, so that you have a guaranteed peak in your performance. And then number 3, this one's really cool, is that we're gonna break down for you the modern science about what the NFL, the NBA, and the US military are doing in order to improve human performance in as little as 6 weeks, and how you can use those techniques to apply them to your running. It's even endorsed by the great Bill Rogers himself, 4-time Boston Marathon winner and 3 times ranked #1 in the world. And I know you're gonna love it, so go to Amazon or Kindle or Audible and you can get your copy of Run Elite today. Links are below in the description.